Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Juan, I am just one reader, and I am here with my June wrap-up. So in the month of June, I actually completed 8 books in total, which is a very good amount, and overall I had a very successful reading month. However, I want to mention quickly 3 books that I started reading throughout the month, and eventually I just had to stop reading them and put them back on my shelves. Not because I am never going to read them, I just thought this was not the right time to be reading them. So, if the book is not right for that time, then just why bother? Just put it back on the shelf and wait until a better, more appropriate time comes along. So those books, I just want to mention them quickly, are The Other by Thomas Tryon, Smoke by Dan Villetta, and the other one was The Air Affair by Jasper Ford. Now, the first book that I actually completed in June was The House at Riverton by Kate Morton, and this has been the worst book that I've read so far this year, my biggest disappointment, the most underwhelming, boring experience that I've had with a novel this year, at least, particularly coming from Kate Morton because she's a writer that I love, and so I was expecting something very high. My standards were high, I guess, and this being her debut novel just did not live up to that expectation, and I just found it incredibly boring, incredibly dull, not at all interesting or suspenseful or dramatic or well written. I just thought everything, every single aspect of this novel did not work out for me. I gave it 1 star. The next book that I finished was More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. This is a young adult novel. It's kind of dystopian, slightly futuristic with science fiction elements. And this was kind of a mixed bag. It was overall a very frustrating book for me because the concept that this book revolves around is very original and very literary, or at least it has a lot of potential for moral, ethical questions and really important issues and important themes that are in that concept of the book. However, the rest of the novel, like the story itself, the characters, the plot, the drama, it just felt incredibly tropey and average young adult, and it was very frustrating because I was actually hoping that Adam Silvera would take the young adult genre and do something different with it. And while the concept and the premise were original and interesting enough to make me read the book, I just found it a little bit disappointing, and it's not a book that I would recommend. I gave it 2 stars. The next book that I completed was the collection The Birds and Other Stories by Daphne du Maurier. This includes 6 short stories, and this just blew me away. This immediately made it into my top 5 books of the year so far. It was incredible. I made a separate book review for this, talking about the psychological implications of each story. It is a very gothic, suspenseful, dreadful feeling, gloomy, moody kind of collection. It is wonderful. It is not exactly fantastical, but there's a kind of supernatural aura around the stories, and I just adored this. I really, really adored this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished was Miranda Hart's new memoir, Peggy and Me. This is all about Miranda and her journey living with her dog Peggy, and how she found the dog, how she adopted the dog, and all the crazy shenanigans that they got into together. This was, at the end, a little bit disappointing and frustrating as well. I did enjoy the first half quite a bit, and I was laughing consistently and finding Miranda's observations on people and their pets really amusing and clever and wonderfully well delivered. But then I just thought the book went on for way too long, and yeah, it was a little bit boring towards the end. I just wanted to skim read a little bit so that I could just get to the good stuff. I think this could have used a little bit more editing. I think it could have been shorter. I think it could have dealt with a little bit more variety of topics, because sometimes she feels repetitive in this book, which is normal because it is all about the pet world and the pet human relationships. So I liked it okay. I gave it like 3 stars. It's not the most amusing, clever, or funny book that you will ever read. Actually, if you want to read something that is really funny, I would actually refer you to Miranda Hart's previous memoir, Is It Just Me? The next book that I finished was Blandings Castle by P.G. Wodehouse, which is included in this beautiful anthology of works by P.G. Wodehouse, A Bounty of Blandings. So yeah, really beautiful collection. And I read the first one in this anthology, Blandings Castle. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and it's probably the most intensely joyful experience that I've had reading in 2018. I just had such a great time. Like I was laughing. I've never laughed so hard and so consistently with a book in my life. P.G. Wodehouse's writing style was delicious and like posh British mocking itself. It was just wonderful. The characters are wonderful. It's a satirical kind of parody of aristocracy and this noble men and noble women and how they interact with each other and with the people who work for them. It's just wonderful, and what really consoles me or gives me solace is that what gives me hope is that there is a lot of P.G. Wodehouse material out there for me to read. This is the first thing that I've ever read by him, and I am incredibly grateful for having discovered him, because he is one of my new favorite authors for sure. So yeah, this was just delightful and funny and warm, cozy, and just incredibly hilarious. Blandings Castle, I gave it 5 out of 5. Next up, I read The Tidal Zone by Sarah Moss, and this was another one of the biggest disappointments that I've read this year. I was really looking forward to it. This is a book that people have really enjoyed in recent years, and I was really looking forward to it. It's literary, it is well written, all of that is true. The character development is there. The themes are incredibly powerful, and the story is compelling. It's about this family, and the parents have kind of inverted the gender roles, the traditional gender roles. So the mother is the supporter, the provider for the family, and the father is the one who takes care of the children and the house. And then one day the father receives a call telling him that their eldest daughter had a weird like collapse, and she pretty much died, and she's okay now, but no one knows what happened with her, if it's gonna happen again, or how to deal with it. So that's the basic premise, and that was pretty compelling, right? But I was very underwhelmed and frankly disappointed and bored to tears with this book, because the writing style of the author, I mean, I've never read Sarah Moss before, and I really want to continue reading her because I think she could give me better things. But here, I just really did not like her writing style. It was so slow and so meandering, and it was like cardboard paper. It was so bland and not at all captivating. So I'm really sorry, because this book had all, on paper, it had all the ingredients to make for a great story and a great experience for me, but it just went to waste because the writing style just didn't engage me. So I gave it like 2 stars. Something very similar happened with the next book that I read, Infinite Home by Kathleen Alcott. Again, another book that has a very interesting set of characters, a very compelling story, a good enough premise, a wonderful setting in Brooklyn. but everything went to waste for me because the writing style was cluttered. It was incredibly dramatic and over the top. The writer was just like masturbating left and right, and I'm sorry if that sounds graphic, but that's just how I felt. I felt like she was aggressively throwing adjectives and adverbs and metaphors and similes and analogies and wonderful pretty purple prose that honestly I don't really care that much about. So in the end, it was just the same. I was kind of frustrated by the writing style because it was just not for me, and I know this is a book that a lot of people are really going to enjoy because of the writing style, but it was just not for me, so I gave it 2 stars, I think. And the last book that I finished in the month of June is another one of my favorite books of the year so far, Pastoralia by George Saunders. This is a collection of short stories and a novella, the novella being the title story, Pastoralia, which is one of the best pieces of writing that I've ever come across, or at least in recent years. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I think this is the book that I would recommend the most for people who want to read short stories that are a little bit out there and a little bit out of their comfort zone. Stories that are very literary but playful and interesting and engaging, but also incredibly powerful in themes, and in theme. And I would also recommend this for anybody who wants to read George Saunders and doesn't know where to start with him. I think this would be a really great way to start with George Saunders. I think the stories in here are a little bit more accessible and human and a little bit more normal than some of his other stuff that is more wacky and out there. I think this is a very, very fine work from Saunders because he just shows you the craftsmanship that he has and the mastery that he has of his craft when it comes to balancing tone and creating character and establishing the tone and setting. And it's wonderful how he has like a very sharp needle and thread, and he is like weaving the themes inside of every sentence. I could talk and talk and talk about this collection, or I could refer you to my separate video that I made reviewing this collection, and I have another one talking about the novella Pastoralia in particular, because I think that novella is just wonderful. So that was Pastoralia by George Saunders, 5 out of 5. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Please leave your comments down below, and I will see you next time.